Welcome to Surviving the Dream with your hosts, Casey Arnold
and David Conley.
We're here to talk to people who seem to have their dream job and find out, what did it take? Is it what they imagined? Is it worth it? How do they do it?
Join us as we uncover the secrets of surviving the dream.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Casey. I know we were recording this week. Thank God for that, because last time I just was, shooting the breeze about absolutely anything. But today I'll be on form. All right, if I can.
All right, good. One of us should be.
Yeah. So we got a guy today who has not one but at least two dreams that we know of. Maybe
Respect.
He's got more. I think we should find out how he survived this dual life. It's Jared Kirchheimer is with us all the way from Chicago. Hello, Jared. How are you?
Jared.
Well, thank you so much for having me today.
Oh,
thanks for being with us. I love knowing about multiple dreams also, because it feels like not only did you have two, but like you successful at two, which I feel like is the extra challenge.
I'm cursed, I guess, with the workaholic gene. So
it is helpful. Let's start at the beginning. What was the initial dream? How did your story start to get you where you are today?
So when I saw Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory as a little kid, probably about 5 or 6 years old, I just loved Gene Wilder. And I fell in love with his performance. I fell in love with that movie. And especially at the end where he asked Charlie Bucket, he said, what happens when your dreams come true? And he said, no, what happens? He said, you live happily ever after. And that had me, and I was in love with movies ever since I heard that. But I came from humble beginnings. My parents worked really, really hard, but we were always concerned about money. So I never was trying to figure out as I was growing up, how am I going to accomplish this? And I had a lot of restless energy. So instead of going into theater in like grade school and high school, I needed sports to kind of get that energy out, because in order to get into, the film or any type of acting, theater, which I did a little of, you have to be somewhat settled and in your personality and who you are. And I just had too much angst and kind of this raw energy that I needed through sports. But so as I went through high school, I'm figuring, okay, I got to go to college. I got to make some money because I come from humble beginnings, and I'm not a good waiter and I'm not a good bartender. And I have to figure out how I'm going to survive and pay my rent while I find my unique way into the film industry. So I was good in math and science. I went into engineering because I knew that when the economy is bad, they always throw money into public works. And I figured that was a way to always have a steady job while I figured out how the hell I was going to get into film. So I did that. I went to University of Illinois, which was one of the top programs at the time, and fortunate enough to graduate from there. And took a job and then started writing on the side and started trying to make some relationships in the business, took some acting classes at night and stuff. But I started working so many hours because engineering, when you're busy, it's really like 80 hours a week. And I reached a point where I realized if I keep trying to do this side by side, I'm not going to get it done. So
what were your parents doing? You said it was humble beginnings. How would they be classified?
So my mom, she was like a teller in a bank, and my dad had a very small business, like a packaging business. He actually, he was an accountant, and he lived out in California, which he really liked for a while. And
he loved it.
He was working for the government accounting office. And then unfortunately, his dad passed away very young. So he had to come back and take care of his mom, who had a lot of mental health challenges. And that's why I really, when I saw your movie, Casey, I really felt it, because I had a lot of mental health issues with a lot of members of the family. So it really
thank you. And I'm sorry you can relate.
No, that's why mental health is a big part of Say Her, the film I just made. But
yeah.
So anyway, Dad, he did the right thing. He came back and he took over his dad's really small packaging business, and he's surviving and we're able to eat. And I'm grateful that we had a home and food and everything. But like anything on the other expenses, they would always get really nervous about. So that's what their background was. But they were terrific parents, just salt of the earth, hardworking, very kind. In fact, on their grave monuments, I have the 10 Commandments on both of them, because they lived that. Very few people do. I mean, they lived it, and they're good people.
Are you sure you're not too well adjusted to be an artist? Because you sound like you've made a lot of solid life choices. I don't know.
No, it's funny that you said that, because now I was getting, so after 4 years of working, making pretty good money, working all this overtime, I said, if I don't leave now to go to LA and try full time, I'm never going to do it. So that's what I did.
Could you tell us what kind of engineering you were doing, Jared?
So I'm so lucky. Coolest projects, bridges and roads, some of the biggest bridge and road programs in Chicago. It was so fun, and it was a lot of work, but it was just cool. I worked on the construction side, so I was outside a lot. It's not like being stuck in an office. It was cool. It was really fun. But I had that acting bug. So I took some classes in Chicago, and then I went to LA like every other kid who thinks he's going to go out there and work night and day, and he's going to make it in a year.
How old were you when fresh-faced Jared made it to LA?
27.
Okay.
And that's why the great bridge builders of the world, they go, you know what? I could do something much more important than that. I could be an entertainer.
Did you continue engineering when you made it to LA, or you dropped that all together?
So my company, they love me because I work so hard for them. And they're like, why don't you just work part-time in LA? We have an office there. I'm like, I can't. You have to work night and day to even have a chance to get any work in film and TV. So I'm like, I can't. If I leave, I have to go and do it full go. So that's what I did. And for 4 years, I went for it hard. And I'm very driven. So I got frustrated after like a year and a half in LA. I wasn't getting enough auditions. So I went to New York. The reason I did that is I had a cousin who was a senior executive producer at the early show. So I thought he'd have some connections for me at Law and Order. By the way, I saw one of your movies, David, had Kelly Giddish in it.
Yes, that was pre-Law and Order. Yeah. She was amazing because she was, when she was shooting our movie, she was also shooting a soap that she was in. So we had this deal that she would shoot the soap in the morning and then come to us completely fresh-faced. And I will never forget saying, oh, Kelly, I totally forgot to give you this scene. And she goes, and it's like, there's lines and everything. She goes, I did 30 pages this morning, give it to me. And she could just do it.
Brilliant.
Like,
those
wow.
soap actors have like crazy sponge brains to memorize lines so quickly.
I think it's just training. I think it's just because you have to. So she was just fine. And I was so impressed with her. I mean, what a great girl Kelly is.
She is. And that I'm the complete opposite of that. Like I have to over prepare.
Yeah, no, I've got. In fact, if you look behind me, I know the listeners can't see. You can see a poster of Kelly.
It's called The Understudy, the movie that they're talking about for anyone who's curious.
Yeah, with Asif Manvi and Richard Kind, Paul Sparks. There was Gloria Rubin, Waco Ellsworth. What a great time!
That was awesome.
Great cast. Yeah. I was very
okay. So you went to New York.
And it's funny. So I figured he would be able to get me an audition at any of the Law and Orders, the spinoffs. He couldn't, but he did give me Brian Gumbel's desk when Brian Gumbel wasn't working. He's like, you can go there and send out your resumes and make your phone calls. I'm like, Steve, I need some auditions, man. I appreciate the desk.
You just soak up that good Brian Gumbel juju and see if it's going to help you succeed.
I tried. So to be honest, things were going well there. I landed my first speaking role in a feature, which was cool. But before that happened, unfortunately, the devastating incident of 9/11 occurred. And I'm on my way in for an audition that day, and we get turned around at the Lincoln Tunnel. And for whatever reason, my phone is the only phone that's working. And I called my dad and asked him what happened, and it was so horrific. And I passed my cell phone around the bus, and everyone was calling it.
You said, and your father was in Chicago?
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible? So you're going through the Lincoln Tunnel in New York, and you're bringing up your father in Chicago to say what's happening in New York.
Yeah, just because we were on a bus, and those days you didn't have the internet on your phone.
Yeah.
You didn't know what's going on. And I think all the cell towers were out, but for whatever reason, my tower was working. It was so weird.
Right.
What a scary place to be when you find that out, too, in the Lincoln Tunnel.
They turned us around. Just as we were approaching the tunnel, they turned us around. They had already closed it off.
Oh, good.
So we went through that horrific day as a nation, which I still, I think about all the victims and families and all of us. It's just so tragic. But So that hit me pretty hard. I'm a sensitive person, but I stuck around as long as I could, but I saw that the industry was obviously shelved for a while. So I decided to go back to Chicago. I had a short film I wanted to make, and I had some connections there. So I made a short, took that back to LA, got a job at Sony Pictures Entertainment as a security guard so that I could meet people and try to shop the film around.
Yeah.
And that was fun, just getting to talk to, celebrities and everything, kind of feel like I'm getting my feet wet a little bit in the industry. And I met Jared Kirchheimer, who was the head of legal there, and he always teased me because we had the same first name, and he was really cool to me. You kind of feel invisible out of the time, and he just went out of his way. He knew I was a struggling actor. He went out of his way to make me feel like a human being. So he's been a friend till this day. He's older now, but he introduced me to somebody that was packaging movies, and I developed some relationships. But I spent all the money I had made, in engineering, and I decided after that short film wasn't getting any attention and I was running out of money, and I decided to go back to Chicago and resume the part-time film life again while I got back into engineering. And that wasn't easy because they kind of like, you left us here high and dry to go fill out your other dream. And now you expect us to hire you back. We're kind of a little gun shy to do that. But I went to the city of Chicago where I had done some work, their Department of Transportation, and I sat there and I refused to leave. I said, I'll work for free however many days, however many weeks you need me to. I'll work for free, but I have to work. I'm broke. And It worked. They walked in the corner office and they said, this kid's nuts. He's not leaving and he wants to work. And they gave me a job.
I think that's the ultimate survival story, isn't it? I'm not sure it's surviving the dream. It's just like, I need to survive.
Just refuse to leave until they let you have some work.
And that's like, I love mentoring kids, and that's a big part of what Say Her, our film, is. And that's the biggest advice I have to any kid who's hearing no all the time, or they maybe come from humble beginnings. If you tell enough people that you'll work for free, eventually they figure that's a pretty hard-working person and you're going to get a job. It's sometimes the door closes 100 times before you convince somebody to do it. But drive is a pretty important factor. So fortunately, I was able to get back into the industry, and I had a really fast track. I became a vice president at one of the biggest, most successful construction engineering firms in Chicago. We were working on the coolest projects, one of which is featured in the film a little bit, which is kind of cool. And that was it. And just had a film company on the side trying to raise money for a feature that I had written. Investors would come in, you're going through the developmental hell, and then they pull out at the last second. An actor comes in and they pull out, and it's years and years of this. And another, I would say, 20 years go by of all that nightmare, rewriting stuff and trying to package a movie. And then I finally got to the point again where I'm like, if I don't leave now and do it full time again and make my first feature, it's never going to happen. So that's what I did. And that's how Say Her came to life. There's a little more I'll tell you about later, but it's.
Wow. But so you never gave up. You just always were like, yeah, this side job is great. Did you have like a number in your, like a dollar number in your head for engineering that you're like, if I made this much, I could try it again? Or like, was that satisfying also, or just the film bug was eating at you?
It's a great question. So I was probably working literally 60 to 80 hours a week doing engineering. And then on Sundays, I work 7 days a week. I went to my field office, and on Sundays I would do a little bit of work, but I wouldn't charge it because they didn't have the budget on the engineering side. And I would spend most of Sunday doing my writing, doing my calls to try to get investors. It's probably putting 10 to 20 hours a week of film all these years alongside it, but just couldn't make it happen. And then I didn't have an exact number in mind for when I would leave engineering to go make a film, but something that ended up happening, my parents, they both took a dive health-wise at the exact same time. I had one parent getting some major surgery in one hospital. And then my mom had a nervous breakdown because of that. And she was in the psych ward at another hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the beginning of a 5-year ordeal where I basically had to take over every aspect of their life and became a caregiver for them. So at that time, I had to cut down the hours at engineering. A lot of the hours I was spending in my engineering office, I was taking care of insurance stuff and fighting with insurance to get things paid for them. So it was a pretty rough 5-year period for that. And at that time, as I was doing less and less engineering, still trying to do some film on the side and juggling all this stuff going on, I just decided that it was time to follow my dream, because that was like a hellish experience. I took really good care of my folks. They deserved it. But it was a nightmare for anyone that's ever had to do that. Everybody knows how hard it is.
Yeah.
You're trying to take care of your own family and work and all that stuff. But
do you feel like sorry, Dave, the question of like end of life, like mortality, was that like a little, my dad also passed away, and I, like the ticking time clock of like,
yeah.
Oh, right. That's right. One day it just ends. Like it was fast for him. So for me, it was a little like, oh, one day you're a little sick and then one day you're just done. Like, did that help you sort of flip the switch of like, obviously I'm much younger than my parents, but like, how much time do I have left? What do I want to do? Like, is that what made you switch to film?
That's always a part of it. That definitely was a part of it. But also, I think just enduring all the pain of watching them suffer, I just had to make a film to process that.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
How do real people process horrible things in life? I don't know.
Yeah, it was so much going on, and all this stuff. It was like juggling, and I'm not patting myself on the back. There's a lot of good kids that take care of their parents, but it was hard just juggling both careers and them, and then at the same time, my wife is wanting a divorce, and it was weird. It's just so much stuff going on. So it was time. I had all this stuff I needed to get out of me, and it was time to make a film full time. And you'll love. So there's more to the story. So the film I had been trying to make all these years was like $1 million movie. I didn't have anything close to that, but I found someone in New York that was making a movie in an area that I really love. So one of the first things I wanted to write a movie about, which I never got to up until that point, was as a kid, I weight trained with the head Olympic coach of Team USA weightlifting and a ton of Olympians. There's this really cool gym in Chicago where Say Her is set. The movie I made is set. And I always wanted to make a movie about that coach, because that coach, in addition to being the head Team USA coach, taking all our teams to the Olympics, he was an FBI agent. So he was such an inspiration.
Wow.
He's an FBI agent. He's like the head of the fitness program at the FBI. Plus, I'm sure doing a lot of other stuff. And he's the head coach of this incredible team. And I just so admired him, and he was such a good mentor. I wanted to write about his life story, but I never got around to that. I couldn't get the rights from him, and I kind of lost touch with him, but I always had it in the back of my mind. And then I saw in New York someone was making a film in the Olympic weightlifting world, which I always loved. And it's just this niche sport that hasn't been seen on screen before. So I loved the team. I invested in it. I became a producer. And we're literally days away from shooting. The flights are booked for all the actors. Hotels are booked. And due to issues completely beyond my control with some other team members, it fell apart. And that happens to a lot of us. We've all been there. But I needed to do the right thing. It's just I'm an ethical business person. I fought for all of us. There were two of us that wanted to give back money to the investors. There was another party that was actually much more entrenched in film that didn't want to do that, but I forced it. I said, it's my reputation. We have to take care of everybody. And we returned the money to the investors as much as we could, what we hadn't spent on like pre-production stuff. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a check to kind of make that other person go away, because I didn't want to go to court over it. It wasn't that much amount of money. It was significant for me, but so that was a tough thing. So I lost a big chunk of my savings, life savings with that. But I pivoted and I wrote a movie set at this Olympic weightlifting gym where I saw as a kid that I loved so much. And I ended up loving the story that I wrote even more than I loved that New York movie, which was really awesome. So you never know where the path is going to lead you, but I'm really happy with the end result, and that's how this movie got made.
That's beautiful. Where can people watch it?
So we are in talking to Sony Pictures Classics. I developed a mentoring relationship with them. I met Michael Barker, the head of Sony Classics, at the Ebert Festival in Champaign, Illinois, he went to school at U of I also. So I met him there. I pitched him an old script that I had. That movie they weren't ready to do at the time, but they told me if you can get a movie made, we'll look at it. So 15 years later, I get this new movie made, Say Her, and I send it to them. They watch it. They like it, but they said, because you don't have any big names in it, build up some buzz, get some press, and get it into a big festival. So that's what we're doing now. We got a nice press junket on WGN Primetime News, which was really cool. We're getting stuff like this. Thank you so much. You're part of our family now. For having us on. You're
happy to have you. Happy to help.
Did you ever know Michael Barker when you were working security?
No, so because he's in New York. Sony Classics is in New York, and Sony Pictures Entertainment is in LA. So they're related, but they're an independent arm. Right. But just to get them to watch my movie was such a huge thing, and for them not to say no is such a huge thing. So I understand from a business standpoint, they want to have more buzz behind it, and they don't want to invest that money. That's actually not their model. Sony Classics has smaller films. Their model is not to spend a ton of money. It's have the filmmaker do some of that. So it's cool. I'm loving getting the press, because by the time it gets out, I want a lot of people to know about it so that it does well financially, not only for me, but because we're donating 50% of earnings to at-risk youth and gun violence prevention in Chicago, which are integral to the film. So I'm all about it. As much as I want it to be out right now in the theaters, I'm okay with building the audience before we get it out there. And then I was telling David before you got on, so I've sent to a ton of festivals. I didn't know anybody. Sent some emails, though, to all the festivals explaining the background of the story and why we love it. And nobody responds, but leave it to Cannes. They respond to me. I've had 7 emails back and forth, and we're doing everything possible in this world to get selected there. Just the fact that we have their attention.
We love.
Are you just going to show up there again and say, I'm not leaving until you screen it?
Kind of. I kind of made a video for them yesterday that says it in a more loving and humble way, but I kind of am doing the same thing with them.
I still think the Cannes Film Festival, out of all the festivals I've been to, it's the biggest and the best. It is wonderful, and I think because of that, they will take it. Everybody, it's kind of almost more democratic than any other festival I've been to, because they have to go, right, we're going to look at everything. And
so to answer your question, that's what we're hoping.
All right, so keep an eye out, everybody.
Yeah, I'll stay in touch. You'll be the first phone call.
Okay,
to tell you, but
let's all go to Cannes in May. Let's go. We'll see you on the red carpet.
That would be so much fun. I told them in this little video I made for them that we're already looking for houses. We're staying positive that you're going to select us.
I tell you, when I went with a movie, we all stayed in a caravan park, and it was worth it. But I didn't get in to see my own movie because I couldn't get past Jim Caviezel, who was playing Jesus at the time. With his arms outstretched down the red carpet.
I get you.
So hopefully he won't stop you from getting into your movie. I want to know more about this. I mean, these are sound like very different career paths.
And 2 full-time careers.
Yeah. I mean, when you're saying you're doing 80 hours on one and 20 on the other, well, that's 100 hours a week, right?
It's a lot, yeah.
I mean, are there crossovers? Are there correlations between the two dreams and the two careers?
That's a great question. So Murphy's Law is so fundamental to construction. Everything that can go wrong will. So you learn that every second you're putting out some fire, because if you don't keep the project moving, there's massive delay costs. And so you're serving the city, you're serving your client, you're serving your company, you're serving the public. and all that service. And I'm really into that. Like, even that's how my film, I want to give to the public with my art, and I wanted to give to the public with my engineering. That's kind of a crossover, but the Murphy's Law factor is a big crossover, because in film, so many things can go wrong too, and you have to react. Otherwise the money's clicking away.
Yeah. You're basically producing already.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very similar stuff going on, very challenging fields.
Do you get what kind of different satisfaction do you get from seeing a bridge complete to seeing a movie complete?
Yeah. So, oh God, it's see, I loved my engineering career, and I was so thankful for it. And I do feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world, because we just kept getting so much work. So many firms were jealous of us because we kept getting so much work, and it was so cool to get that recognition and win a bunch of awards and stuff. Not because we're special. It was just because we work really, really, really hard, and we cared about the work, and we cared about our clients, and we cared about the public. So it was cool to get rewarded that way. But my heart is with film, so it's not the same joy.
Right.
You know, it's not the same joy. It's satisfaction on the engineering side, but the pure blissful joy that I get from being on a film set in any capacity, you can't compare.
That's what, like 10-year-old you, or however old you were when you saw Charlie and the
that's
Chocolate
Willy
Factory.
Wonka me. Yeah. And the coolest thing about it, go ahead, I don't want to interrupt you.
I just was going to say, like, what did you finish your thought, then I'll ask my question.
No, so and that's another great thing, because all the auditions that I never got, and all the opportunities got pulled away, and all the excitement you get that something's about to happen, it doesn't happen. I was able to make my own movie and make cool things happen for others. Like every actor that I hired, it was such a blessing to know that I'm giving them work. And there's a young girl that's in the movie that has a critical role. She actually plays a girl that ends up going to the Olympic Games. And I got her a role in that New York film that collapsed. So I felt so bad calling her, because I'm like, no 10-year-old should be so excited to have their first part in a big movie and then have it pulled at the last minute. So I told her and her parents that I'm going to write a movie in Chicago and I have a role for you. And I don't think they believe me because of what just happened in New York. But that was the coolest feeling.
Yeah,
be able to do that for her.
It's difficult to describe that to young actors. I'm having to tell actors that I'm working with a lot of young actors at the moment, and I'm always saying, don't take things personally, because sometimes a whole film collapses. And I remember meeting someone who once said, years later, and said, yeah, yours was the one job that I didn't get. I said, well, the job didn't happen. So you take that off your scorecard. It's all right.
No,
I got it. Did you have something that you did to help you like maintain your sanity and your wellness working that many hours for that long?
God, I'm a very religious guy, so that's where I feel grounded. But gratitude goes such a long way. Even if I wasn't religious, like, I'm so thankful for every little thing, and not just every meal, like every bite of a meal, every sip of a drink. Gratitude, it gives you so much joy. And I don't take anything for granted. And I just felt like how lucky I was to have all this work where so many people are struggling to find work. And here I couldn't work enough hours. Like I had to sleep at some point, but if I didn't have to, I would have been working those hours too. So I just feel really, really blessed and grateful. And that it's always given me a really strong drive ever since I was a little kid.
What about the periods? You went through a dark period where you're basically being a caregiver. There's a divorce going on.
Yeah.
There's films aren't happening and you're working on. How tough was that? How bad were the doubts? And were there moments where you thought, this is just, I'm just kidding myself?
No, it's a great question. And it's, for me, it's like the religious factor. Love was guiding me, and love was giving me the strength. Like there were days, my dad had COVID a couple times and he survived it twice, which is incredible for someone in his 90s. But like there were days, I took him to the hospital. He was coughing on me. I was next to him, and thank God I never got COVID. And I just felt like love was guiding me and protecting me, because I was trying to do do the best I could to take care of my loved ones. But there were certainly some tough nights, but love was at the core of everything. And even the divorce, as hard as that was, as divorces go, it was relatively peaceable. And it was the right thing to do. I'm kind of old fashioned, and my ex, she pretty early on in the marriage felt like she made the wrong choice. And for whatever reason, she just changed her mind. And I told her, I said, we have so many blessings. We have abundant work, abundant food, and just try to focus on that. I think when you get older, you'll appreciate that more. So I think she tried to, but she never quite got over that feeling that it wasn't right for her. So I'm old fashioned. I told her it has to be you that makes the choice. And so she did finally pretty far into the marriage. But overall it was relatively peaceful. But yeah, love just carried me through, and it's a really powerful force.
So let's go on to the positive. You've now made the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the dream, I presume.
Yeah, it was, it's like literally winning the lottery, making a film. And I'll be honest, it only cost me $25,000 to make the movie, to get it in the can. And I just got really lucky. I found a cinematographer, an editor who's so gifted. In fact, his name is Mike Simchick, and he writes like these little books for film schools. I don't know how many use them, but I know some do, that talk about how to make your low budget or no budget movie look like a Hollywood film. He's just so gifted. And I had a podcast with Paul Lisnick from WGN on the radio, and he's been reviewing films in Broadway for 30 years. And he just came right out of blue and said that he felt that Mike's work was really like worthy of an Academy Award. It was so good. And I know how good Mike is, but to hear him say that was pretty cool.
So is it like engineering, you're building the team? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so building the team, it was kind of cool. We kept it small. I actually love this. So one of my engineering coworkers retired. He's a little older, and I already had kind of like a father-son relationship with him from working with him. And the role that I play in the film, he's kind of my mentor, father figure. So I wanted to cast him for it. And the reason is, like, in the engineering world, people just, whenever he talked, people would stop and listen to him. He just had that personality. He's just got this natural charisma, and you love to listen to him, and you love to hear him and see him animated. And I told him one day that I'm going to cast you in a movie. I don't know what movie it's going to be, but when we were working in engineering, I said, I'm going to cast you one day. And I always called him Clark Gable.
So let's talk about.
It turns out that he is the most beloved character. Everybody loves him in this movie.
His first acting role at what, like age 70 or something?
Yeah, 72. Just such a natural, and everybody adores him. And if I didn't tell him that was his first role, they wouldn't know.
So you were acting, directing, and writing that movie, right?
Right. I hadn't acted in a while, and that was actually the hardest part. So I wrote it, I produced it, I catered it, I was the transpo guy. You know how it is on these small movies; you do everything. But the acting was the hardest. Like we were joking about Kelly Giddish and how sharp she is. I was literally I would go to the library to write in the morning, and then in the afternoon I would run my lines in the parking lot in my car. Yeah. And I so prepared. I can't tell you how many hours I prepared for the acting part, because I was a little green, not green, but it had been a long time since I performed, so I needed to shake off the rust. But everybody that saw the movie said that nobody else could have played it. And it's because I really put in a lot of time, and also I knew the story so intimately and deeply.
I had a similar experience. I mean, I've been in a movie where I I acted and I directed, and I said afterwards I'd never do it again, actually, because I found that, and I think it felt like at the time. Oh, I remember people saying to me, that's the dream. You're leading a movie and directing it," and I went, "Actually, it was a nightmare."
It's challenging.
It's amazing that it happened, but I did say afterwards, I don't think I should do this again. Do you want to discuss your experience on that and how you feel now about that?
Yeah, it was so joyous. And ironically, because there was an actor we had cast in this New York movie that I felt really bad for him because he prepared so hard for it when it collapsed, that I actually invited him to play this role that I played. And he never responded. So I rewrote it for an older person because he's a younger guy. So I was never intending to act in it, but it was a blessing that it happened. And I was kind of burying the fact that I love performing so much, so deep in my heart and soul. And I was kind of running away from that. So this gave me a chance to face it and to really go out and explore it again. And it was so joyous. But yeah, doing everything was really hard because, like, fortunately, I was so over prepared that as soon as we yelled cut, I could think about the next shot, look at the clock, figure out what we have to cut because we don't have time. Because you'll love this. We shot it in 5 long days because it was really hard to get a permit for this place. This gym is in a Chicago Park District building, and I had to fight like hell to get a permit, and I had to shoot there just because that's where I trained as a kid, and it's just this legendary gym, not just in the U.S. People all over the world in the sport know it, and it's a character in itself. But I could only get it for a week. That's all I could afford. So yeah, just the pressure. As soon as you yell cut, you're figuring out what scenes you can get away with not fitting in that day, and I wouldn't do it again.
No. So if you had a choice, what would you? I mean, and you might. It's a difficult one to answer this.
Yeah.
I've been there where they go, and I've actually, because I've made that statement, and that's thrown back in my face, going, I wouldn't do it, and both together. But what would you, if you were given a choice of saying, we've got to roll, you've got to roll, or you're going to direct? Which would you do?
Yeah, I take the role. That's really where my heart is.
I thought you might. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
And again, I was running from it. Part of it was because of all the rejection. You know, you're human, and you begin to doubt yourself. But I'm glad I stood up to that demon, and it was wonderful.
I tell you, it never goes away. I'll just tell you a quick story. Is that when I was making the understudy, I know we were casting a certain role. There was a very famous director that I knew personally, and I thought, I was thinking of you for the role. And he was actually on a studio movie, which is why I won't mention his name. He offered to hold the movie so he could play the role. The studio said no.
Yeah.
Rightly. But I was going, don't do that. But I realized that once you've been an actor, Norman Lloyd, who was, I don't know if you know that, one of the oldest actors in Hollywood, he died. I think he died very recently, actually. He was about 103. I remember him saying, once an actor, you're always an actor. And he was on the blacklist for many years, which was a bad time for America.
Yeah, I remember that time. Yeah,
and he said the thing is he became a producer, but the minute he could act again, he said he did. And I remember saying to him, and I met him in New York once, and I said, "Well, actually, I'm more of a director these days." And he just looked at me and, "No, you're not. You're an actor."
Yeah.
Once you have that performer in you, it lurks and it creeps up on you. I never planned on being in my movie either and having all my most vulnerable issues on camera, but it was without it was like the only way to tell the story. And every time I tried to tell it without it, people were like, you know what you really need? I'm like, don't say me. Don't say me.
No,
and every time they were like,
absolutely.
you got to be in it. I'm like,
Yeah, there's certain projects that you're the only person in the world for, and that was for you, and this one was for me.
Yeah. So what would 10-year-old Jared think of where you are in life now?
Just be so happy. And, you know, one of the things that I wrote in my little spiel that I'm going to send to Ken is I'm doing it. There's so many reasons why I made the movie, but the most important one is for a little kid, like all of us were, that had this dream to work in a very challenging industry that a lot of people don't have success in. And to be able to tell a kid now at that age that people can tell you don't have talent, that you don't have looks, that you don't have money, that you don't have relationships, and there's no way in hell you're going to make it, to be able to tell them that 30 years later, it took me 30 years to make this feature, my first feature, just to be able to tell them that they can do it. If I passed away tomorrow, that's good enough for me, just to give them hope.
That's beautiful. So what is the dream now?
The dream is to stay here until we get it out in theaters all over the world. And that's the cool thing. Not so much, I mean, we love the art that we're expressing with the movie, and that's super exciting. But giving back to these two issues that are so integral to the story, at-risk youth and gun violence prevention, because it costs a lot of money to make those things go away. You can have the biggest heart in the world and work really hard, but if you don't have the funds, those things don't go away. And that's why I'm so incentivized to make a ton of money with the movie, because I started working in areas affected by gun violence in my construction engineering career. So I saw a lot of it up close and personal, and I pulled a lot of that reality into the movie. So after seeing that, I started seeing it 30 years ago, right about the time I started writing my, first movie. And it's never gone away. Like, you still hear the gunshots, you still see the blood. And no child should have to grow up in that. And that's why we're so excited to make a lot of money with this movie and flood these neighborhoods with mentoring and mental health care and opportunities for jobs, and to love the shit out of these kids so that they don't have to experience this anymore.
I hope you get to do that.
Thank you. So that's the dream now. So that's what's going to happen. The movie does really well. I get involved with taking care of these kids, and then I have some other movies I'd like to make too, but I really want to ride out. I don't want to just make this movie, throw money at this problem, and then run away. I kind of want to be involved at the beginning because it's so important to me, but then pull away and get back into the movie stuff again.
You're going to have dual careers again. You just can't pull away from it.
God knows, but it's been so fun, and I'm just having the best time ever.
There still seemed to be a theme that you, even when you narrowed it down to filmmaking, you actually made yourself an actor and a director.
And that's funny too. That you brought
and
up,
then you'll be running a foundation.
Yeah, I definitely want to run a foundation, but I'll be able to, once it's going, I can pull away and get back to movies because I have other stuff that I want to make. But so the director thing too, not only did I ask that actor from the New York movie, I asked the director to direct my Chicago movie because I felt bad for him too because he's such a great guy. And he didn't feel like, because it was so devastating what happened, he wasn't ready. So he said, you direct it. So I wasn't even intending to direct the Chicago movie. I just was planning to write it and produce it. And then I ended up acting in it and being the transpo guy.
You had 4 jobs on that film.
He was also catering.
Yeah.
And our whole team was so good. Everybody did. Our other actors, they help with the lighting. The team is incredible, and I love them so much. And I'm so excited for them to come to the house in Cannes that we're going to rent.
Oh, there you go. It all ends.
We look forward to seeing your posts there. Oh my God, we're up to regular questions now too.
Yes. All right.
Cool.
Okay then, Jared. What I want to know is, if you won the lottery, the big one, what would you do?
If I won the big one, I would run into these neighborhoods we're talking about where there's all this gun violence and kids are suffering, and throw so much money at programs to help them. Get involved in politics, try to make an effort to get back to the way things used to be. Just do a lot of good. I think I saw an interview on Bill Maher with what's that movie that just came out where they go to Poland?
A Real Genius. Oh no, yeah, Real Pain.
Real Pain. And he said that's one of the things that Jesse said, that he's like, people that have all this money, why aren't you helping people every day? That's in a conversation he was having with Bill. So that's what I would be doing. I just love humanity. I love uplifting people, and I would do it. I'm very simple. Like, as long as I have, a roof over my head and food to eat and my dogs to kiss, I'm so happy. Like, I don't need anything else. I always loved helping people. So that's what I would do. Keep enough money to survive for myself, but also help others.
That's beautiful. Okay. My question is, what is your like go-to snack or comfort food? And since you were crafty on top of all these other things, what were you making on set?
I'll answer the second part first. So it's funny. We had a really awesome hair and makeup person, Lauren Litwin, and she's worked on a lot of cool movies, much bigger movies. And every morning I was bringing Dunkin' Donuts, bagels too, because I know not everybody likes donuts. And like after 2 days, she's like, Jared, could I please have some fruit? I'm like, of course, you should have asked me the first day. I would have got you fruit because she was healthier. So that answers that question. But my favorite snack personally, God, I used to be a lot more fun. I used to love chocolate, but I've been eating healthier these days for some reason. So like Yoplait yogurt is my go-to fun snack these days.
All right. I feel like with the Willy Wonka love, you got to love a chocolate bar every now and then, or the 10-year-old's going to be real sad.
That's the problem with me, though. I have like this obsessive personality. Like once I break the seal and I have one, I have 20 of them.
I get that.
All right, Jared, I want to know, what's your favorite animal and why?
My favorite animal is a dog because I've loved him since I was a kid. In fact, I ran into a friend I grew up with in preschool. He always had dogs. We never did because my parents didn't like animals. So I fell in love with dogs at like 4 years old. And I told him, you're the reason that I have dogs now. And the reason I love them is they're just pure love. They're just pure love. And it's a simple answer.
All right. Final question, Jared. If we really knew you, what would we know about you?
If you really knew me, what would you know about me? That I am straightforward. I don't need like a legal piece of paper. If I give you my handshake on something, it's either happening or I'm dead, which is kind of extreme, but that's true. I'm really old fashioned that way. So you can trust me, I guess.
Your word is your bond. I like it.
Yep.
This has been really informative. You're a very kind, lovely person. I hope your film does well. You're really proof that hard work pays off. I like that.
There you go. Thank you, Jared. We really appreciate having you on.
I'm so grateful, and thank you guys for all the incredible work that you do. And really, you're part of the family now forever with us, and I'm going to keep you posted, and I want to hear about all the good stuff you're doing too. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. We're happy to have you.
You've only got 99 hours left in your week.
Right, Dave, we're slackers. We gotta get like 2 more jobs or something.
I have too much energy.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll all get that. Everybody, thanks for listening. Hope you have an energetic rest of your day. Quick shout out to Mike Nicholas for being our tech savior, and Carmen Sclafani, also known as Wiser Time. Thanks for our music. And thank you all for listening.